of the wealthy and grandly named Horatio Wills, a squatter and politician in the colony of Victoria, and Elizabeth Maguire, no forebear of Eddie's, though he'll find some connection, no doubt. Though Wills was actually born in the penal colony of New South Wales. I just thought I'd slip in that bit about the penal colony of New South Wales, close to what is now our nation's capital. Many will remember Wills as the co-founder with his cousin, H.C.A. Harrison, of that other sport, Australian football, the one that grabs the undivided attention of the nation for at least 6 months of every year. Well, it's becoming more than that. We'd have to chat to my son-in-law to pull his horns in. But he should also be acknowledged as Australia's first cricketer of significance. In fact, it was when Wills was at rugby school under the famed headmaster Thomas Arnold, and subsequently playing for, though not studying at Cambridge University, as a student and a cricketer, that he discovered the game of rugby, which piqued his interest in a game involving an inflated ball, even though cricket, not football, was his first athletic and sporting interest. Now, if you read anything about him and his prowess, you'll discover that he was so significant as a cricketer in the colony that it seems rather odd that he's not already acknowledged as a legend with us all now. The other thing that might not be quite so well known about Wills is that he was a great friend of the First Nations people. Not everyone was at that stage, even to the point of learning their language and their customs, despite the fact that his father had been killed during the largest massacre of Europeans by First Nations people in the mid-19th century. Now, Wills himself survived, and just 5 years later organised, coached and captained the first Aboriginal team that undertook that first famous tour of England in 1868. Everything he achieved in his all too brief life was done by the age of 44, when it's widely believed that he actually took his own life, having suffered what now might be described as PTSD in the modern generation and descending into alcoholism. Mind you, I guess if you stabbed yourself in the heart, it's not only widely believed that you've taken your own life, there's pretty clear evidence that you had taken your own life. I've got a soft spot for him because not only did he play for the Melbourne Cricket Club, but when he pursued his desire to create a winter game to keep cricketers fit during the off-season, resulting in the football code that we all love, in a match against a Geelong team when Melbourne was well ahead at half-time, he's reputed to have come out after the break and played for Geelong. He was a stirrer, and he had frequent run-ins with the administration, so lucky he wasn't around in your day, KJ. But that didn't dampen his enthusiasm for the game played by flannelled fools, and legend has it that he was the first male cricketer to promote the cause for women in cricket. Well ahead of his time, you could happily say. Now, you could wax eloquent for hours about this extraordinary man, and even though his overall first-class record as a cricketer was at best in modern terms modest, 32 matches, 602 runs at an average of 12.28, and 130 wickets at 10.09. Now that's not bad. With 15 5-wicket and 3 10-wicket match hauls. There's one intercolonial match in which his performance was startling. In that era of the mid-1800s, intercolonial matches, first held in 1851, provided an outlet for the intense rivalry between Victoria and that penal colony to the north. With his reputation preceding him, Wills bore Victoria's hopes of winning its first match against the elder colony. A fellow called William Hammersley, a former acquaintance of Wills in England, and now captain of the Victorian 11, recalled Wills' first appearance on the MCG for a trial match that was staged 1 week after his return from England, and he described Wills thus: "The observed of all observers, with his Isingari stripe, That's the black, red and gold signifying out of darkness through fire into light. And somewhat flashy get-up, fresh from rugby and college with the polish of the old country upon him. He was then a model of muscular Christianity, so couldn't do much better than that. Wills won this trial match for his side with a top score of 57 not out. And soon thereafter, the age waxed eloquent and said of his playing style and entertaining ability that there's not been a more amusing or entertaining scene on this ground. And it talks about that intercolonial match that he was prepared to play in. And I'm quoting from the Age of the day. Parliament and business came to a standstill in Melbourne for the January 1858 intercolonial match between Victoria and New South Wales held at the MCG. Captaining Victoria, Wills took 8 wickets, the most of his side, and on the second day, batting in the middle order, a ball hit one of the many imperfections in the pitch. That's a nice way of saying it was a dog of a track. One of the many imperfections in the pitch and knocked him unconscious. He recovered, played on for 2 hours, and won the match at day's end with a top score of 49 not out. The crowd rushed the field and cheered Wills off in triumph, and victory celebrations lasted for several days throughout the colony. Now a household name and darling of Melbourne's elite, Wills was proclaimed the greatest cricketer in the land. And in a further reference to his ability as a cricketer, the following comments were made. Wills retained the Victorian captaincy for the January 1859 intercolonial against New South Wales held at the Domain. Despite breaking his right middle finger on day one while attempting a catch, Wills top scored in the first innings with 15 not out, so they obviously didn't perform brilliantly, and took 5 for 24 and 6 for 25, carrying Victoria to an upset win. Later that year, he resigned from the Intercolonial Match Committee in protest after Thompson publicly chastised him for not attending practice ahead of the next match against New South Wales. Well, I wonder how Doug Walters would have gone in those days. During a follow-up practice match, players struggled in the day's heat and ignoring calls to retire, Wills suffered a near-fatal sunstroke. Hammersley, whom I referred to before, wrote that Wills felt obliged to perform for the large crowd that had gathered to watch him. Over 25,000 people attended the MCG in February 1860 to see Victoria. And 25,000 in a colony that probably didn't have many more than 25,000 in those days, I suspect. Captained by Wills and playing New South Wales. Wills bowled unchanged in both innings, taking 6 for 23 and 3 for 16, and top scored with 20 not out. Victoria won by 69 runs. Wills was certainly a character like no other in the colonies of Australia. He danced very much to his own tune. In fact, you couldn't help but notice it. And if you really want the full story, do read Greg de Moore's book, or even Martin Flanagan's biography of Wills. There's every reason under the sun to accord this giant of a man the recognition due to him from the Taverners. So it's my very great pleasure to have been given the honour of nominating Thomas Wentworth Wills as a legend of the Taverners, and I do so enthusiastically. Thank you.
Well,